are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point, a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this, an alternative world branched off.
Greetings and welcome to another edition of Free Association Radio. I am your host, Robert Phoenix. It is Friday, the 8th of July, and boy, what a day we got going on here, huh, boys and girls? Yesterday, 7/7, we have yet another event taking place, this time in Dallas, Texas, where a shooter by the name of Micah Xavier Johnson decided he wanted to take justice in his own hands and make the dominant paradigm pay. According to Micah Xavier Johnson, it was all about shooting and killing whites and cops. This is the party line. This is what is being told to us. And the details of this event are still trickling through. Now, what's really interesting about this event is that in most false flag situations, the shooter is killed, right? There's no unless it's James Lee Holmes or James Holmes from Aurora, Colorado, who apparently is just completely whacked out of his brain on meds. You don't get a shot. You do not get a shot at being able to interrogate, cross-examine. Even Dzhokhar Tsarnaev apparently had his tongue cut out. Yeah, that's right. Apparently his tongue, something just absolutely disastrous. So he couldn't talk. This, of course, after he was filled with bullets, waiting for or trying to wait out the police in a boat that was occupied near Boston Harbor. So in those two cases, in those two instances, there were people that lived. One could not tell the tale of what happened, literally. The other so completely brain-addled and whacked out that he had no chance of defending himself or describing. So this is clearly in different territory. Now, that doesn't mean, by the way, that it's real. I mean, there's a lot going on here. There is a lot happening, okay? And I don't think we should take anything at face value. There is a war that is being waged right now And the war that's being waged has to do with the fact that it's not about black versus white, or pink versus white, or Muslim versus Christian. Those are the symbolic fronts for a greater war. The war here is a war on consciousness. It's a war on consciousness. A couple days ago, I was hanging out on Facebook, and my friends, I've got a wide swath and stripe of friends on Facebook. I have friends who are openly gay. I have friends who are black. I have friends who are Latina. I've got friends who are Jewish. I've got a very broad cross-section of Facebook friends, part of my Facebook and astrological community. And I was looking at some tweets from a couple of friends of mine who are African American. And these guys, both of them, I would consider to be straight up, solid, non-reactive guys. These were guys that 9-10 months ago were kind of, in the middle and watching what was happening and really doing their best to stay open to the perception of truth. The truth being that, all people are being manipulated, including the black community. And then I watched them go into full tilt over the last couple of weeks. And they started talking much more militantly than I'd ever seen them talk before. And that's when I felt like there had been some kind of Rubicon that had been crossed, because friends who were normally solid, logical, really clear, lucid, down-to-earth cats were now saying, hey, look, where's our Nat Turners? Where's our Harriet Tubmans? And this is in response to the police shootings in Baton Rouge and Minneapolis. Now, there are a number of these police shootings that I believe are completely and utterly fake. I think they're fake. Not all of them. But the ones that do happen, I'm sorry. There are times where people are committing crimes. And the way the system has been set up now, the way that the game has been rigged, if they are committing a crime, and a crime that looks as if there can be an escalation of physical violence. And I'll give you an example, okay? I'll give you an example. 25 years ago, Rodney King was beaten up by the LAPD, Simi Valley Police. He was beaten up. Rodney King was high on PCP. He was driving erratically. They pulled him over. And if you've ever dealt with anybody on PCP, you're dealing with essentially a monster. I don't care what nationality, what ethnicity, you're dealing with a monster. So what did they do? They beat him up. They used nightsticks. They used clubs. I'm not justifying it. I'm just telling you what happened. I'm sharing this with you for context. What happens now if that Rodney King incident occurs? Rodney King's a dead man. They waste no time in executing Rodney King. And even back then, they were lucky that they had the cameras that could catch Rodney King being, beaten up again and again and again and again. By the way, Rodney King, the late Rodney King, did okay, made a fair amount of money for the distress and the violence that he was put through. I'm not justifying that either. But I'm telling you right now, if that happened today, because of how the game is rigged, how the social situation has become so stacked, that even the slightest perturbation that looks like it could go to the next level will get you plugged. And I don't care if you're black or you're white or you're Mexican, it's going to happen. And the reason it's going to happen is because our police force has become militarized. Ever since 9/11, the police force has been taking dollars, money from Homeland Security. And they've been getting sweetheart deals on equipment that is being moved out of places like Iraq and Afghanistan. Whether there's Humvees or small tanks or rocket launchers, they're getting great deals on this stuff. And they're getting money from Homeland Security. So our police force has been completely militarized since 2001. Okay? That's just one big swath. And when you get people that are militarized, there's a completely different mindset that takes place. They're no longer officers of the peace. They're protectors of the elite. They are protectors of the system. They are guardians of the matrix, sentries of the matrix. Now, the other thing that they've been doing systematically over time is that they have been giving batteries of tests to police officers to determine their psychological profiles. And this is true. You can look this up. And that the police force is now mostly comprised of people who have or scored low on empathy. If you have too much empathy, if you have too much compassion, you will not make it into the force. So I'm not saying that they're stocking our grays and blues with complete sociopaths, but I'm telling you, they're not looking for Paramahansa Yogananda with a nightstick. This is not what they're looking for. So now we have this filtering of who is actually going to fill those shoes. This is my own personal theory, and I've talked about this before, that a large number of police officers who work out on a consistent basis probably have a fair amount of access to things like steroids and HGH. So now you have a further kind of tweaking and mutating of the mindset. I'm not saying that everybody, but I'm sharing with you that this is a large swath of who is doing what. I'm going to add another layer to this. Let's just go back, right? We have the militarization of the police. We have active tests and batteries, psychological batteries that filter out high levels of empathy. We have potentially designer drugs, steroids, HGH, that are added into the conditioning, the muscle building, the weight process of training that takes place inside gymnasiums that are either connected directly to the police force and or related to. And here's the fourth piece. The fourth piece is that a number of police forces, police departments, their sergeants are going to Israel, and they're being trained by the IDF in terms of crowd control, in terms of psychological tactics, you name it. They're going there. Hey, for them, it's cool. They get to go on a business trip, business junkets, all paid for, right? It's all that DHS money. So they get to go over there and they get trained. So what do? They come back and then they in turn train our police department. So we're essentially being transformed on a local level into a version of the IDF. If you've ever watched the IDF police the Palestinians, it starts to begin to make sense. There's a video out there where there's this guy who takes this woman down. I don't have it handy. Takes her down and uses a Krav Maga, which is a form of jiu-jitsu, and Krav Maga is is an Israeli self-defense. So that's a clear demonstration that there is an influence, an external influence that's coming into our policing, which is not great. That, by the way, is the boot on the face. This is what the people who are supposedly there to protect and serve us. This is what they're being transformed into. So I'm just giving you a background as to the how and why our police force has become militarized and can be at times ruthless protectors of the status quo. Okay, not everyone. I've known some police. There's a parent on my son's team. He's a sergeant here in the Austin PD. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. So I've got contacts. My son trained with former Berkeley PD with jiu-jitsu for 6 years, from 2 to 8. So I've had contact with PD and still do. And some of these people are good people. But I am saying that as a whole, we're seeing a sea change in how our policing is being completely and utterly transformed into something straight out of Philip K. Dick. Okay. That's one side of the equation. On the other side of the equation, we have an administration that has shown itself to be as deeply engaged in polarization as any other administration I have ever seen. I think it not only rivals the Bush administration, which was terrible, absolutely terrible. The only thing that the Bush administration, the only group they pandered to were the rich, plutocratic 0.5%. That's it. If you were part of that, you were screwed. I mean, theoretically, you could kind of like bandwagon on the Bush administration, maybe because he was white, and you might have happened to have been white at the time. So, oh, yeah, he's a good old boy. George, good old boy. Good old boy Christian. We're in good hands, taking care of those Arabs, those terrorists. I'm with you, because if you're not with him, you're against him, right? I mean, there is that mindset, which for me was polarizing, because I knew what the fuck was going on. So I was an outsider. I'm like, yeah, man, this is not good. I was actually leaning towards, sort of the pink side. I was leaning towards. I wasn't a liberal, but I could certainly understand the liberal case against George Bush. It's an easy case. But now they're in power, and they've got their own version, and they're looking the other way. They're holding their noses and looking the other way. Most polarizing gene in history, this country. I'm telling you right now, we're living under it. And what the Obama administration has done is it's helped create unfortunately, the basis and the foundation of a race war. A race war, a class war. They've been stoking the fires, real and imagined, right? Because some of these events just aren't real. I'm sorry. The shooting in the church in Columbia, South Carolina, fake as a $3 bill, okay? There was another shooting of a black man running from a Mercedes. Again, fake. Totally fake. No blood, no bullet wounds, no entry, no exit of the bullet. Fake. Excuse me, fake. Roanoke, Virginia. The white hot couple. Our love was white hot. How about that? White hot. That's a term he used. White hot. And they weren't even a couple. He was just some lackey who's associated with the station and given a photo book, right? To flip through the pictures. Here we are again. Here's my lover. She was, and we were white hot. Who was the alleged gunman? He's black, right? Black. That didn't take place, though. Didn't happen. It was fake. Totally fake. Let's go up to Oregon. We've got a shooting in Oregon at a community college. Shooter happens to be black. He's mixed, a little light, but hey, black. I'm telling you, that didn't take place either. Didn't take place either. So what we're seeing here, and then we have the Michael Browns and the Freddie Grays. I know this took place. I mean, look, let's be clear. Michael Brown and Freddie Gray were not the most reputable citizens. I'm sorry. But then again, neither was Hillary Clinton, and we'll get to her. So we have this melange, right, of people that are acting out and they're getting caught. They're like tuna that get caught in a net at sea. Because that's part of the system, right? It's just like a fishing net that just scoops up people. And every now and then, one of those fish that they scoop becomes a story. And it becomes a flashpoint. And it becomes a wound. And an open wound that never heals. And that's what happens. So now we've got sort of, you know what they call that, by the way? They call it chum. That's another term, chum, which is basically used for shark bait. So we have the chum, and then we have the fake, the illusory, the unreal. And each of these events begins to create momentum. Theoretically, momentum. This revolution. Right? What is a revolution? It's something it's turning. It's turning. It's a wheel. We gauge our car's speed by RPMs, revolutions per minute. And so when we talk about a revolution, we talk about the turning of the wheel. And when you have a wheel on a vehicle, what do you need to get up to speed? You need momentum. Or else you're standing still and there is no revolution. Right? So they have to fuel the revolution. They have to fuel the momentum. And every time an event like this occurs, there's more momentum towards a number of different ends here. It took place in Texas. Texas has guns up the frickin' wazoo. Okay, we are armed to the teeth here. Events took place blocks away from Dealy Plaza where JFK was assassinated. How about those apples? So here we go again. The Dallas police force. These are the people that shut their fucking mouth when Lee Harvey Oswald was murdered by Jack Ruby, a.k.a. Jack Rubenstein. They shut their mouths, kept on moving. They knew what happened in Dallas. They knew. There was too much money, too much investment. And the other thing, too, that I haven't talked about with these events is that we have to take into account that there is an influence, a fraternal influence, secret societies and the Freemasonic insert into these events. Why? Because number one, they can keep a secret. We know that. They can keep a secret. Number two, they have an investment at a high level of overturning the existing order. Freemasonry is a revolutionary group. How about that? It's a revolutionary group. Are they sitting down and having planning meetings with Black Lives Matter? No, I don't think so. But at the same time, I think that there is super high-level collusion. Obama is a Freemason. He's a Boule Mason. I think he's around the 32nd degree Boule Mason. So absolutely there's collusion at a high level. There's no reason why they can't or would not have a game plan at a high level and have their lodge brothers help the game plan unfold. And I think that the game plan for Freemasonry is the Illuminati game plan. It is the same game plan as the Kabbalists, the Sabbateans. It's all about the eradication of social history, social memory, and that we are all involved in this experimental process of dissolving duality through social, racial, economic miscegenation. This is what's happening. It is an experiment. It is a grand experiment. And so anything that stands in the way of that experiment unfolding is going to be put to the test and ultimately removed as a variable from the experiment. Because in their minds, they are doing the work of God, or whatever God they follow, right? So here we have this cultural thrust towards dissolving duality through the eradication of social and historic memory, so that there is a new genus, a new species that emerges from the planet. Now, is that such a bad thing? Is it a bad thing? I mean, it could be a really interesting thing. But here's the problem. This is the problem. When you create essentially a new group or species without any kind of social or historic memory, then who and what are they? They are empty vessels. They have no context for who they are and how they emerge onto the planet and the scenery of the planet. Now, perhaps this new group or this new evolution of humanity can be fantastic. And they turn the tables on kind of where everything is going. They see the game and boom, the controllers are now, out of work. You know what? If that's the case, I'm all for it. But on the other hand, if there is no historical or social context for who they are, and they're looking for a new story and a new narrative, then they essentially become empty vessels. And then it's the prevailing narrative or the new story that informs who they're about to become. Because if there's a total break from the past, biologically, genetically, and historically, then where is it headed in the future? It's the future that is being created through the adaptation and the reframing of the narrative in the present. This is what happens. And so now we have a group of people that can be potentially easily led around. And I think we're seeing that. This is what's happening. I've been watching Vice TV, which is very interesting. There's some great programs on Vice TV. But the prevailing kind of message I'm getting from Vice TV is that these are the best things, the absolute best things you can do and embrace. Number one, smoke a lot of pot. Smoke a lot of pot. Get high. Get as high as you can. That's number one. Number two, be queer. And what I mean by queer, I'm not using the word queer in a pejorative sense. Queer meaning be different, be strange, be outside, whatever. Just don't conform to any kind of stereotype of what it's like to be quote unquote normal, which again I get. And the other third is the whole connection with the reassignment of sexuality. And that's part of it. So those three things, they're real popular on Vice. And this is a cultural driver. Anyway, I'm getting off track a little bit. But this is where it's all headed. So these guys at a high level, they're driving a program. It is not just about creating dissension between people, although, by the way, that is a big part of it, right? I mean, and we're getting a run-up here to the Republican convention, which is happening the end of this month. And the heat is going to get turned up in a big way. So this is, when I was with Regina, I talked about 4th of July. I talked about how things are going to get set off on and around 4th of July. Well, the first thing that happened was that Hillary Clinton basically was left to walk, skate. And I'm going to get into her in the second hour in the show. That happened on, I believe, the 5th of July, one day after the 4th. People were up in arms, breathing fire, right? How could this happen? Then the cynical sect, the rest was, of course, it's going to happen. Why? Because they're the Clintons. And the Clintons have been getting away with murder since they, took office and power in Arkansas back in the 1970s and 80s. That's been their game. And then we have Bill Clinton just, showing up on that plane in Phoenix, just so happened to be there. Hey, here's my Bill Clinton. Loretta, this is Bill. I'm going to be in Phoenix. I'd love to come meet you. Tell you about the grandkids and my golf game. Yeah, I'll meet you on the tarmac. Where's my saxophone? And she happens to be there. Why, yes, Bill, I would love to meet you on the tarmac. It's been such a long time since we've shared stories about our grandchildren and our golf game in secret meetings. People weren't supposed to know about that. They got busted. There was a reporter. He saw Bill Clinton. He was there. He was just hanging out. It's like, hey, that's Bill Clinton. And she did not know. When they asked her about, this guy asked her about the Clinton meeting on the plane, she was like, what? How the fuck did you find out? Yeah, that's what the press is supposed to do. Unfortunately, because we're living with, again, a polarized society, a dualistic society, where Fox News is talking about this ad nauseum, CNN is kind of going, hey, MSNBC, ah. But even the Democrats on her side of the ledger sheet were not happy that this meeting occurred. But of course, these people can do whatever they want with impunity. They will never get punished, ever. They can do whatever the fuck they want. Nobody is going to make them accountable. Accountability's gone. And the hijacking of any kind of responsibility and accountability towards the American people, that's over with. And it's blatant. It is so obviously blatant. Now, they used to hide it a lot better. They don't care now. And the reason why they don't care is because they have their people in place. They have been changing and altering the system for the last 50 years. Ever since Johnson's Great Society, they have been altering the terrain of the system and putting people in place at a judicial level, at a state level, obviously at a federal level. These people are they've got their people in place. They've got them in place in the news organizations and news groups. And a lot of it is being buttressed by the alphabet agencies, because that's the alphabet agencies are in the service of servicing corporations, and corporations governments, or our government, which is a corporation posing as a de facto government. They're there to surface them. That's their role. Private security, private service for corporate rule, for lack of a better term. Then the polarized and dualistic view of information doesn't help either, right? Because you could have all the facts in the world. And if they're being stated on Fox News, anybody who is anti-Fox News, who is an anti-conservative, they're not going to listen to it. They're just going to flat out dismiss it. Well, there's an agenda. There's an agenda. Everybody's got an agenda. Everybody has an agenda. Wake up and smell the fucking coffee. Your party has an agenda. Your people have an agenda. The right has an agenda. It's all agenda driven. And sometimes the agendas masquerade as a populist totem. They will masquerade as a populist totem. And that's why people will rally around the populist totem. And it feels like Trump is a populist totem. And by the way, I think he's going to lose. I think he's going to lose. I think it is going to be potentially a landslide victory for Hillary unless something happens to Hillary. After what happened on the 5th of July, I don't think it's even going to be close. And I think it's going to be a kick in the nuts to the American male and to the old guard and to this last dying, fading vestige of populism. Not out with a bang, but with possibly a whimper. I hope I'm wrong. Trump is a flawed guy, but he's not Hillary. If Hillary Clinton is president for the next 8 years, this country is going to be so radically transformed in ways that we can't even begin to perceive. She will be the witch that burns everything. Just like Waco, just like the Branch Davidians. And that's where we are. It doesn't sound great, does it? Sounds depressing, doesn't it? Well, we're going through a very powerful time. There is an assault on our consciousness and our psyche that we have never seen before. Not like this, where every single week now we're dealing with some kind of event, some kind of momentum building event that may or may not be real. But it doesn't matter whether it's real or not because it is impacting the collective. It is motivating people to react. It is stoking the fires of deep-seated enmity and wounds that may have just been easily healed by now. The one thing that the great uniter has not done is he's not been as inclusive as he said he would. And this, in part, will be one of the largest failures of his legacy. If somehow at some point down the line we're able to get to a place where we can look back on this objectively, we'll look at the last 8 years as being the most pivotal years in not just the history of the United States, but the world and the role that America has played in it, and in the previous 8, maybe the last 16. It's terrible times since 9/11, 2001. And yet, what do we want? What are we here to do? We are here so that consciousness can flower, so it can blossom, it can bloom. This is why we're here. And this is why what's happening is so terribly unjust. Because we have an evolutionary path that we're moving towards. And the dominant paradigm does not want that to occur. It only wants it to occur on its terms. And those terms are non-negotiable. They're non-negotiable. So in order for us to be able to unfold in a way that is evolutionary, the flowering of human consciousness, of what it's like to be a human, to remember to be a human, where we have compassion and forgiveness, and not this fake bullshit compassion and forgiveness that's whipped up in about 4 days. We're like down in South Carolina. All I just want to say is I have compassion for the shooter. Oh, they got that kid, didn't they? Where the hell is he? Where is his trial? Right? Where's that kid with the fake flag, the fake, Confederate flag? Where is that little a-hole? Nowhere to be found. But we have compassion for him. God is good. And if my mother were here today, she'd have compassion for him too. But she's not. She's on vacation in Jamaica. I mean, excuse me. She's not here. She's dead. You see, we are here to grow. And every time we get to a phase where we are getting ready to bloom, they lower the boom. It has happened again and again and again throughout history, whether it was the stock market crash, whether it was the Dust Bowl, whether it was the Black Plague, whether it was World War I, whether it was World War II, whether it was Vietnam. Every time we had an opportunity to transcend this fucking system, they lower the boom and they turn us against one another. And they create, for all intents and purposes, a damnation alley. If you've not seen the movie They Live, go watch it. It's worth seeing. You have to watch They Live. It is one of the codex keys for understanding the matrix that we're living in. I've been watching season 2, Marco Polo. I love season 1, Marco Polo. It's great. You can find it on Netflix. Once I discovered it, it was a binge watch. Love the fact that this young Italian guy gets conscripted into Kublai Khan's court, becomes kind of an important figure in the court. And I'm a sucker for anything Mongolian and military strategy. I love it. Season 1 was great. They have this great character named 100 Eyes. There's this monk who's blind. He's brilliant. Genghis Khan, Kublai Khan played with this sort of, noble ruthlessness. Joan Chen. The beautiful Joan Chen is his wife. Season 2 is terrible. I mean, they've got about 5 different plot lines going on. Excuse me. But one of the things that I've noticed is that there is an advancement of a contemporary narrative that's taking place inside of Marco Polo. And you have to watch it. You have to watch for it. It's very subtle. But Marco Polo is being challenged by his cousin. And apparently, not Marco Polo, Kublai Khan is being challenged by his cousin because Kublai Khan stole an election. So here we have this election theme coming up in Marco Polo. So his cousin has said, hey, I want a fair election. Because I think you stole the last one, you rat bastard. He doesn't want to have a revolution. He doesn't want to fight Kublai Khan because he knows he'll lose. But he wants to appeal to the masses and have a fair election. Well, that's just not going to happen. Well, number one, because his cousin is a populist. His cousin's stated goals and aims are to unify Mongolia. Not Mongolia and China and all the other regions that Kublai Khan wants to conquer. He wants to bring everything back in-house. Whereas Kublai Khan is expansionist. He wants to have a pan-Mongolian empire. So we have 2 themes here that are being played out in real time. And then what happens is the populist begins to lose ground. But we also see that the the Pax Mongolian or Pan-Mongolian Empire has its drawbacks as well. Now, so that's one theme that's going on, which is very contemporary. There's a theme of diversity because Khan's court is very diverse. People of all stripes, all orders, all religions, which is true. I mean, Kublai Khan was kind of a universalist. You can practice anything, which I'm good with that. I'm not saying to practice one thing. But again, they're presenting it in a way that is very contemporary, even though he's a bastard. Well, Michelle Yeoh, who's a great martial artist, she's in the film, in the series, and Michelle Yeoh plays this concubine, and she's trying to work on the overthrow of Khan's empire. And she's also apparently very into bondage, not being herself bound, but binding Ahmed, who is there to overthrow the Khan. That's what he's there to do. He has such anger and hatred towards him. He's doing it from the inside, right? So we have court intrigue. Anyway, there are a couple scenes where she ties him up. There's a Japanese form of bondage called kinbekken. And so she's tying him up with these ropes and these knots. And then in the second part where she ties him up, she pulls her clothes away and says, "Look at me." Now, I have seen a number of naked bodies in Marco Polo. We don't see her naked body, though. So we have to surmise what she's showing him, okay? Then she makes him get on his knees, and she walks around from behind, and yes, fill in the blanks. Literally and figuratively fill in the blanks. Because she is most likely a she and a he. So here we go, right? The third sex, transgenderism getting played out in Marco Polo. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. It's not as good as season one, but if you know what to look for, if you understand what to look for from a contemporary perspective, then you can have the codex to unravel movies, media, cinema. I could do a class on it. I just watched a movie recently, David O. Russell, Joy, starring Jennifer Lawrence, Robert De Niro, Bradley Cooper, Isabella Rossellini. Story of a plucky young woman who decides that she is going to invent a mop that saves the world. I think it's based on a true story. And I think it takes place in the 80s, just when Home Shopping Network is starting off. So Jennifer Lawrence plays this woman, Joy. Smart, tough, takes care of everybody. Life keeps dealing her, a few blows every now and then. She's got to get up again and get up again and get up again and continue to move forward and sell her idea. She's divorced. Her husband lives in the basement of the house they're all living in. But every now and then she has these moments of clarity. You've got to move out. We've got to do this. I've got to do this. Set up a meeting. Get the investing. When you look at the movie, it is a feel-good story of a woman who overcomes odds, is plucky, has great intelligence, perseverance. Taken at that level, it's an inspirational movie. But then you begin to look beneath the surface and you begin to see that there's a whole other narrative going on there. That all the sympathetic characters in the film are from other countries. They're migrants. That the people who are really the dastardly folks who want to fuck her over, they're white guys. One's a German. The other's a cowboy from Dallas. Derek Markham. So we see a social agenda being forwarded. I mean, it's not hard, but it's hard in the sense that it's getting more and more difficult to look at cinema and art in a way that's not slanted, in a way that some guy who lives in fucking Malibu, or wherever David O. Russell lives, decides that he's going to slip in a series of memes and tropes and images that are going to somehow get past you and reinforce social stereotypes. But they're not that smart. They're just not that smart. But it's getting harder and harder and harder to sort of see cinema or film or anything where that's not happening, where there's no agenda being pushed, that we could just watch something that's just fucking creative and imaginative. It's getting nearly impossible because it's all tied now to the popular narrative and the social agenda that's being moved along. It's the way it is. So, I mean, as a result of that, I've completely unplugged from TV now. Completely. I have, well, not completely. I have Roku, and I have the ability to go to Netflix or Amazon, which I really enjoy. I love. That's fine. But we almost have to do that. Tell you what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to find this clip, and I'm going to play this clip. It is from a movie called My Dinner with Andre, which I saw when I was in my 20s. And it's about two playwrights, Wallace Shawn and Andre Gregory. I know that some of you are pretty familiar with what I'm about to play. And so you've probably heard this before. And let me just punch this up here for Dinner with Andre. Yeah, okay. It's a great scene. It lasts about 5 minutes. So I'm going to play this, and it'll take us to the top of the hour. And I think Andre Gregory really captures the zeitgeist of our times. And he talks about the last real flowering of the human being, which he believes is the 1960s. And I think there's some truth and merit to that. But I think that we have to be aware that we are always on the cusp of an evolutionary shift. And that what keeps us from doing that more than anything is what happens from the dominant paradigm to distract us from being able to transcend the systems of our times. All right, here's Andre Gregory.
I mean, are we just like bored, spoiled children who've just been lying in the bathtub all day, just playing with their plastic duck, and now they're just thinking, well, what can I do? Okay, yes, we are bored. We're all bored now. But has it ever occurred to you, Wally, that the process that creates this boredom that we see in the world now may very well be a self-perpetuating, unconscious form of brainwashing created by a world totalitarian government based on money, and that all of this is much more dangerous than one thinks? And it's not just a question of individual survival, Wally, but that somebody who's bored is asleep, and somebody who's asleep will not say no. See, I keep meeting these people. I mean, just a few days ago, I met this man whom I greatly admire. He's a Swedish physicist, Gustav Bjornstrand, and he told me that he no longer watches television, he doesn't read newspapers, and he doesn't read magazines. He's completely cut them out of his life because he really does feel that we're living in some kind of Orwellian nightmare now, and that everything that you hear now contributes to turning you into a robot. When I was at Findhorn, I met this extraordinary English tree expert who had devoted his life to saving trees. Just got back from Washington, lobbying to save the redwoods. He's 84 years old. He always travels with a backpack because he never knows where he's going to be tomorrow. And when I met him at Findhorn, he said to me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "New York." He said, "New York, yes, that's a very interesting place. Do you know a lot of New Yorkers who keep talking about the fact that they want to leave but never do?" And I said, "Oh, yes." And he said, "Why do you think they don't leave?" I gave him different banal theories. He said, "Oh, I don't think it's that way at all." He said, "I think that New York is the new model for the new concentration camp, where the camp has been built by the inmates themselves, and the the inmates are the guards, and they have this pride in this thing they've built. They've built their own prison, and so they exist in a state of schizophrenia where they are both guards and prisoners, and as a result, they no longer have, having been lobotomized, the capacity to leave the prison they've made or to even see it as a prison. And then he went into his pocket and he took out a seed for a tree, and he said, "This is a pine tree." He put it in my hand and he said, "Escape before it's too late." See, actually, for 2 or 3 years now, Chiquita and I have had this very unpleasant feeling that we really should get out. And we really should feel like Jews in Germany in the late 30s. Get out of here. Of course, the problem is where to go, because it seems quite obvious that the whole world is going in the same direction. See, I think it's quite possible that the 1960s represented the last burst of the human being before he was extinguished, and that this is the beginning of the rest of the future now, that from now on there'll simply be all these robots walking around, feeling nothing, thinking nothing, and there'll be nobody left almost to remind them that there once was a species called a human being, with feelings and thoughts, and that history and memory are right now being erased, and soon nobody will really remember that life existed on the planet. Now, of course, Bjornstrand feels that there's really almost no hope, and that we're probably going back to a very savage, lawless, terrifying period. Findhorn people see it a little differently. They're feeling that there'll be these pockets of light springing up in different parts of the world, and that these will be, in a way, invisible planets on this planet, and that as we, or the world, grow colder, we can take invisible space journeys to these different planets, refuel for what it is we need to do on the planet itself, and come back. And it's their feeling that there have to be centers now where people can come and reconstruct a new future for the world. And when I was talking to Gustav Bjornstrand, he was saying that actually these centers are growing up everywhere now. And that what they're trying to do, which is what Findhorn was trying to do, and in a way, what I was trying to do. I mean, these things can't be given names, but in a way, these are all attempts at creating a new kind of school or a new kind of monastery. And Bjornstrand talks about the concept of reserves, islands of safety, where history can be remembered and the human being can continue to function in order to maintain the species through a dark age. In other words, we're talking about an underground, which did exist in a different way during the Dark Ages among the mystical orders of the Church. And the purpose of this underground is to find out how to preserve the light, life, the culture, how to keep things living. You see, I keep thinking that what we need is a new language, a language of the heart, languages in the Polish forest where language wasn't needed. Some kind of language between people that is a new kind of poetry. That's the poetry of the dancing bee that tells us where the honey is. And I think that in order to create that language, you're going to have to learn how you can go through a looking glass into another kind of perception where you have that sense of being united to all things, and suddenly you understand everything.
Are you ready for some dessert?
I think I'll just have an espresso. Thank you.
I'll also have one. Thank you. And could I also have an amaretto?
Certainly, sir.
Thank you.
This is my dinner with Andre, with Wallace Shawn and Andre Gregory. Speaking of robots, I'd like to make a correction here. There was a misunderstanding on my part. The shooter, Micah Xavier Johnson, was not taken into custody. He is dead, and he was killed by a robot, which has all kinds of implications. So let me just read this to you. I want to go a little bit further here. So he ticks off a lot of boxes. First of all, he's being described as a recluse who lived with his mother, had no prior criminal record. So it means he's a lone wolf. So now we have lone wolfism. That's number one. Number two, appears that he was a Army veteran, 25 years old, Army veteran. This is what the Army personnel spokesman says. Alex Horton, I believe. It says now here that he was in a standoff with Dallas law enforcement from shortly before midnight until about 5 a.m. Friday morning. During these negotiations, Johnson said that he wanted to kill white people, especially white police officers, and that he was incensed by the recent shooting deaths of black men by police officers in Louisiana. By the way, those shootings took place in Baton Rouge, right? Baton Rouge, which is the red baton or the bloody baton. The bloody baton. What do cops have? They have batons, right? And the other took place in Minneapolis. Minneapolis. So we have police and red baton as the last two locations for shootings. And he says that the end is coming. He clearly stated that he was not affiliated with any group and that he did this alone. After negotiations broke down, Johnson was killed when a police robot detonated a bomb which took him out. Okay. The image we see of this man, this young man, is he's wearing a dashiki, which was worn in the 1960s by the Black Panthers. And he's raising his fist in a Black Panther, Black Power salute. It is like right out of the fucking Communist Manifesto. Let's find a black guy and make him look like a radical black terrorist playbook. This is what we get. This is the image we get, right? Let's throw a dashiki on him and have him raise his fist. Okay, I'm going on record, and I'm going to say that this guy doesn't exist. Like, he just does not exist. It's too much of a setup. I'm sorry. It's just too much of a setup. He's just hitting all the marks. He's a veteran. Veterans are of all the groups, right? Veterans are coming back, and they do not want veterans to own guns. Why? Because they know what the fuck to do with them. Okay? So get ready now. You're going to start to hear the chatter around legislation around veterans not being able to own a firearm. Trust me. That is coming. It's coming. And of course, he's a lone gunman. So, hey, I'm not affiliated with any group. Nope. Let's just keep that meme perpetuated. So, but he definitely, during his negotiation, tells the world that he wanted to kill white people and cops. And this is what we're focusing in on. So who was he? Was he really there? Is he just a person? Is he somebody who existed and is part of a role? Was he part of Army intelligence? I mean, think about that. This guy's military. I mean, he could be a setup. He could be a patsy. He could be put into a situation as being that guy. But the person that's shooting could be somebody totally different. And who's to say the shooter actually is dead? I mean, we have to question reality in such a rigorous fashion now that it's really time-consuming, right? Because if we don't do it, then we're getting just completely crushed by the wheel. And the wheel is a symbol for the revolution, right? So we have to rigorously question. I don't know if this guy exists. I mean, it sounds to me, I was under the impression that they got me and another person turned themselves in. But this is from 11:33 this morning, not that long ago. This guy's dead, according to the story here. He's blown up by a robot. Here is another little meme, right? The robot is the one that took the guy out. It wasn't a cop. The police couldn't do it. It's a fucking robot. Who's the hero? The robot. We need more robots. That'll be the next call. That robot, that brave robot, gave up its life to save dozens of people. Let's give the robot a medal. This is the world we're living in. So we have to dissect where we are and what we're doing. And the key is we can't stay cynical. Because if we stay cynical, then we just throw our hands in the air and it's a big what the fuck. What the fuck, why the fuck, who the fuck, how are we going to get through this? And then life just becomes really not that interesting. Am I right? I mean, if we're just engaged in the dissection of events that are supposed to be real all the time, it loses its luster pretty quickly. It's like, are you kidding? We've got to continue to do this, filter and cycle through the bullshit 24/7, especially on the run-up to this election. And I guarantee you, you can quote me right now, we're going to get more of it. We're going to get a lot more of it. This is the summer. We're going to be on fire. I've talked about this before. I said the 4th of July would be the time that this would start to go off, that this would start to happen. Guess who we're not talking about, by the way? We're not talking about Hillary Clinton. 48 hours ago, there are people that were fucking pissed off that this guy, James Comey, who has a deep history with the Clintons. I'm going to read you some stuff on James Comey. See if I can find this article. Hold on a second. There is a piece here. It gives you, oh, by the way, CERN is acting up again. They found 4 new X particles. How about that? Hold on, I gotta find this Comey thing. Let's see. What do we got? I found, okay, Clinton donors. Comey. Here we go. This is what I wanted to read. Okay, there are 2 stories here. I'm not a huge fan of WND. I don't like, they don't treat the Palestinians well, but they do have news pieces that are kind of worthwhile. So I'm gonna source this. It says FBI Director James Comey has a long history of involvement in Department of Justice actions that arguably ended up favorable for the Clintons. In 2004, Comey, then serving as Deputy Attorney General in the Justice Department, apparently limited the scope of the criminal investigation of Sandy Berger, which left out former Clinton administration officials who may have coordinated with Berger in his removal and destruction of classified records from the National Archives. The documents were relevant to accusations that the Clinton administration was negligent in the build-up to the 9/11 terrorist attack. On Tuesday, Comey announced that despite evidence of extreme negligence by Hillary Clinton and her top aides regarding the handling of classified information through a private email server, the FBI would not refer criminal charges to Attorney General Loretta Lynch in the Justice Department. Curiously, Berger, Lynch, and Cheryl Mills all worked as partners in the Washington law firm Hogan and Hartson, which prepared tax returns for the Clintons and did patent work for a software firm that played a role in the private email server Hillary Clinton used when she was Secretary of State. Let me read that. They're so incestuous. So incestuous. This is the world that they are living in, and it's not the world we are living in. These are worlds within worlds. Curiously, Berger, Lynch, and Cheryl Mills all worked as partners. That's Loretta Lynch, Sandy Berger, Cheryl Mills, all worked as partners in the Washington law firm Hogan and Hartson, which prepared tax returns for the Clintons and did patent work for a software firm that played a role in the private email server Hillary Clinton used when she was Secretary of State. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Lynch and Comey both served as U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. They crossed paths in the investigation of HSBC Bank, which avoided criminal charges and a massive money laundering scandal for which the bank paid a $1.9 billion fine. They paid the money, nobody did the time. Nobody does the time in white-collar crime unless you have the goods on the people that are trying to deliver a sentence or get you out of the way. After Attorney General John Ashcroft recused himself in the Valerie Plame affair in 2004, Comey appointed as special counsel Patrick J. Fitzgerald, who ended up convicting Scooter Libby, a top aide to then Vice President Dick Cheney, of perjury and obstruction of justice. That was huge, by the way. That doesn't happen normally. The charge affirmed the accusations of Plame and her former ambassador husband, Joe Wilson. Remember them? Both partisan supporters of Bill and Hillary Clinton, that Libby outed her as a CIA agent. Remember those guys? New York Times reporter Judith Miller's 2015 memoir strongly suggests Fitzgerald improperly manipulated testimony and withheld crucial evidence, obtaining a conviction against Libby in his 2007 trial. Libby is no choir boy. You should read his book that he wrote. It's all about pedophilia. Prosecutor in Berger case, as Deputy Attorney General, Comey was involved in the investigation of Berger, as Fox News reported in 2004. So Comey is all up in their shit, man, and has been for a very long time. These people are just part of an incestuous club that you and I are not party to. Here's Comey's bio. So he's, let's see, what do we have here? He's born December 14th, 1960. He's a contemporary of mine. So he's got Sun in Sagittarius, Jupiter in Sagittarius, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to look. Saturn is now getting ready to conjunct his Sun. What's going to happen? This guy's not, he's got dues to pay. He's going to have a Saturn-Sun conjunction, and it's going to happen in about a year. He was the United States Attorney General serving under President George W. Bush's administration. As a Deputy Attorney General, Comey was the second highest ranking official in the United States Department of Justice. He ran the day-to-day operations of the department, serving in that office from 2003 to August 2005. He was U.S. Attorney for Southern District Courts. He was, 2003, as Deputy Attorney General, Comey appointed the U.S. Attorney in Chicago, close friend and former colleague Patrick Fitzgerald, special counsel to the head of the CIA leak grand jury after John Ashcroft recused himself, so we got that. What else is he? Comey left the DOJ, became general counsel and senior vice president of Lockheed Martin. In 2010, he became general counsel at Bridgewater Associates. In early 2013, he left Bridgewater to become senior research scholar and Hertog Fellow on National Security Law at Columbia Law School. He also joined the London-based board of directors of HSBC. How about that? So, my God. In 2013, Comey was appointed as the director of the FBI by President Barack Obama. So these people are part of a network, and this network has been aiding, abetting, and supporting one another for decades. Everything really starts with old man Bush, right? And we get Clinton, and then we get Bush. So Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, who has Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, who is connected to Bush, connected to Clinton, of course. And now we're coming back to Clinton again. And then if we go into the Reagan administration, we also have all the neocons. That's where they're hanging out. Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, All the neocons are hanging out in the Reagan administration. All the way back to Carter and the Carter administration, as really the last time we had a relative outsider. Although, Carter, he was part of the Trilateral Commission. He was basically used to be a kind of a puppet of the TLC. And the TLC, Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, they're all, sort of meta groups that are based on moving forward an idea of a global government, with corporations really at the top of the pyramid in the global governance. It's not about government. It's about corporate rule, corporate law, corporate mandate. And if corporations are at the top, and by and large they already are, then everything else unfolds as corporate consciousness, which is really machine consciousness, because the corporation must exist at any and all costs. It's like the Borg. And so anything that the corporation needs to do in order to stay alive, it will do, which includes eating its own. And there are rewards if you play along with the system. So I'm not sure how much more I have to add here, with the exception that Hillary, we're not talking about her anymore. We're talking about guns again. And people down at the VFW are having beers and shots and talking about their guns and their ammo and how uppity this and uppity that are going to get what's coming to them, right? And then on the other side, there's more murmurs down at the barbershops like, yeah, good for that dude. Yeah, we need more of that. We need more of these guys, more Micah Johnsons. I guarantee you those conversations are taking place. And these are the fires that are being stoked. These are the fires that are burning. These are the bonfires of ignorance and manipulation. And we have to be able to see it for what it is and just calmly remove any kind of emotion from it. It's got to remove it and share with people that understand. If you could talk to somebody and say, hey, what do you think about this? You ever think that this could be happening? Turn their world around just a little bit. We just need a few people to turn this thing around a little at a time, to understand that we're being manipulated at a large scale level. This is critical. Absolutely critical. We got the Virgo moon today. So what are we in? We're in discernment mode with the Virgo moon. Discernment mode. We had the Sun-Mercury conjunction, just so subjective, so deeply subjective that you're wound up and coiled in the subjectivity of all things Cancerian. Home, family, values, emotions. Sentimental. Cancer's a sentimental sign. When you have something going down with a Sun-Mercury conjunction, it punches a lot of buttons. A lot of buttons. All right, why don't we get on out of here? I'll be back on Sunday night, I promise. We'll be doing the 11th house. If you've not found yet my 11th house academy on my website, please check it out. It is 16 hours of instruction, narrative, lecture. We also have labs. My co-producer here is writing me a quick note. We have labs, and the feedback has been really positive. In addition to learning how to use astrology in a way that makes sense, that demystifies astrology, you're also going to get a chart, you're going to get a 25-page natal report, and we will be meeting right around the third week of July to do our first webinar. So it's about 2 weeks out. You can go to my website, check it out, and I think it's a great deal. I would sign up for it. And like I said, the reviews have been great. All right, I've just been handed a very important note here. It says, okay, now if you're listening to this is only going to last a week. 1 week. I'll repeat this again on Sunday night. But if you go to my website and you want to sign up for the course, you're going to get a 10% discount. How's that sound? A 10% discount, so you're going to be saving roughly $30. And there's a code, and the code is FAR, F-A-R 15. FAR 15, okay? So it's going to be for a week. If you're a radio listener and you hear it, go grab it. And it's on my website. FAR 15 is the code. Click on the link that takes you to Gumroad, and you'll be able to start the whole transaction process, and you'll be able to get the 16-hour course. Like I said, I've been getting really good reviews on it. So that's good. People are happy. They're satisfied. They're learning. That's all I care about. Okay? All right. In the meantime, hang in there. We're going to get through this. And there is the other side, and we will be there on the other side. And we'll be there holding hands, smiling, looking silently into one another's hearts and minds. And we may feel grief, we may feel relief, but we will feel something, I guarantee you. When we're on the other side of all this bullshit, whatever that other side is, we have a chance, a real chance to take this thing to the next level. Hold that as an image. All right, you've been listening to the Friday FARcast. I'm Robert Phoenix, and you know what you need to do. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. Here is Philip K. Dick.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.